Hello, I'm Susan Jebb and I'm co-director of the Livestock Environment and People Project, or LEAP, at the University of Oxford.
My name's Charles Godfrey. I'm director of the Oxford Martin School and one of the two co-directors of the LEAP project. By mid-century there will be around about 10 billion people on Earth. Now it is going to be just impossible for 10 billion people to eat the amount of meat that we do in the rich world, in North America and in Europe. So looking ahead, we will have to eat less meat per capita. And I think one of the challenges and one of the things that we're really interested in LEAP is how do we transition towards that, and how do we do that in a way that the very large number of people whose livelihoods depend on livestock production today are not severely disadvantaged.
When it comes to health, we know that meat and dairy provide some really important nutrients in our diets, things like iron and calcium. But we also know that eating too much meat increases our risk of diseases like colorectal cancer or heart disease. So if we're asking most people in Britain to eat less meat, we need to understand what else we want them to replace that with to ensure that they continue to have nutritious diets. In contrast, there are some parts of the world where conditions like iron deficiency anemia are very common, where it might actually be good for health if they were to eat a little bit more meat. But that means we need to ensure the meat we produce is more equitably distributed across the world, because we can't afford to increase production because of the environmental costs of doing that. Here we're having the second of our annual LEAP conferences, where we bring researchers from across the country together to talk about this really important topic.
There are about 200 people here, and what's tremendous fun is we have people from across the full spectrum of different interests in meat and dairy, so the environment, health and the economy.
We're all interested in the same topics, but just hearing people coming from totally different disciplines with different languages, different takes on the same issues is educational. It makes you think much harder about what you're doing and you learn a lot.
Any research programme like LEAP is really important because they are able to ask questions which can inform policy around meat. It's a very complex area. There's a lot of trade-offs and complexities in the system. So we need projects like LEAP that can help answer some of those questions so we can manage some of those trade-offs and tensions in the food system.
The conference is great fun because it's genuinely interdisciplinary. People are coming at the same problems from very different directions. It's tremendous fun seeing people sparking off each other and making new connections in their research.
Within the LEAP project, we really value having people from many different departments right across the university. And that's because when we're thinking about food policy, we need to have a policy which understands the health impacts and the environmental impacts. We need to recognise that there aren't always win-win situations. Sometimes there'll have to be trade-offs. And it's only by academics talking to each other that we can fully understand the consequences of decisions that we might make, which may seem to be fantastic for health, but actually may have environmental harms, or vice versa. We want to produce evidence and tools which will help people to make decisions which will allow us to move towards a healthier and more sustainable diet. We also want to provide evidence for the farming community and for the food industry in general, but also importantly for policymakers, because they set the context in which our food system plays out.